The empires of the future are the empires of the mind. The room is dim. A single lamp pools light over paper and ink. Outside, a storm rattles old windows. Imagine the pen pausing, the breath held, the letter sealed. That was Churchill again and again, writing in the dark to pull a thread of light forward. He wrote not because the world was calm, but because it wasn't. And he spoke not to soothe, but to steel. Tonight we're stepping into those letters and speeches, not to admire them like artifacts, but to turn them into a weapon you can carry into your own storm. Let's set the stage. It's March 1946. Fulton, Missouri. The war is over, but peace is uneasy. Churchill rises at a small college and names what others only feel. From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent. He doesn't flirt with the danger. He frames it. He labels it. He drags the fear into the light and calls it by name. That's our first lesson. Name your storm. Churchill understood something we keep forgetting. Unnamed fear is a shapeless monster. Named fear is a map. When he says iron curtain, he's giving the public a handle, something to grip. That phrase becomes a compass. It tells you where the line is. It tells you where to stand. What he meant then still matters now. Your iron curtain may not be a geopolitical shadow. It might be a creeping exhaustion that's reached from one end of your week to the other. It might be debt. It might be a relationship crumbling in slow motion. If you can't name it, you can't plan for it. So sit down, yes, like he did with paper and ink, and write the headline over your problem. Short, hard, real. Not a paragraph of excuses. A phrase, not "I'm overwhelmed," but scope creep at work. Not "I'm failing," but postponed next steps. Not "life is against me," but sleep debt and no schedule. Because here is the truth every difficult era teaches. Vagueness destroys courage. Clarity equips it. Once the storm has a name, your resolve knows where to knock. Jump back 3 decades. It's 1915. Churchill has championed a bold plan. The Dardanelles, Gallipoli. The aim, break the stalemate, open a sea route, crack the hardened shell of war. You know what followed. The plan fails. Lives lost. Hope bleeds. He is pushed out of the Admiralty and into political exile. And then something rare. He walks toward the sound of misery. He heads to the Western Front, takes command of a battalion in the trenches, writes by candlelight to Clementine about the thick mud and the cold that bites through the wool. He paints to steady his hands. He reads history to clear his head. He becomes in failure a human being, rebuilding himself brick by brick. You can almost hear him in those pages. No theater, no applause, just a man adjusting, absorbing the blow, and deciding what the next right duty looks like. He will later put the posture in a line that's more than a slogan. In war, resolution. In defeat, defiance. In victory, magnanimity. In peace, goodwill. That's not a neat list. That's a spine. He is telling you how to stand when the weather changes. So here's lesson 2. When failure breaks the plan, don't break your posture. Resolution is the jaw set before the fight. Defiance is the stance you hold after the bell drops you. Magnanimity is your hand extended when you've won. Goodwill is how you carry power when nobody is watching. Churchill's life crosses all 4, but it's in that middle line. Defiance and defeat, where many of us are sifted. Will you throw your tools down and sulk, or will you go find a trench and learn the ground again? But imagine if defiance was not rage, but a ritual. That's what he practiced. He started painting in those years, not because he wanted to decorate a hallway, but because he needed a discipline that refused despair. He would say later that painting rescued him from his black dog, his bouts of depression. He used pigments against the darkness. That's a lesson hiding in plain sight. When a big thing fails, build small, steady things. And then comes a summer sky in 1940. It is August. The Battle of Britain rages overhead. People look up and see vapor trails like white scars across the blue. Night after night, the Luftwaffe comes, and night after night, a small group of pilots rise. On the 20th, Churchill speaks in the House of Commons and carves a sentence into the wall of history. Never was so much owed by so many to so few. The line is a beam of light. Gratitude aimed at the right target becomes fuel. It strengthens the pilots. It steadies the public. It pulls us together. Lesson 3. Find your few and speak it. Who are the few in your life who keep the roof from collapsing? The colleague who always answers the late message. The friend who drops soup on your doorstep during the worst week of your year. The mentor who picks up the phone. Name them. Tell them. Support them. If you lead a team, spotlight the quiet work. People endure more when they are seen. And you, yes, you, endure more when your heart is actively thanking. Gratitude is not a mood. It's a strategy. Do you notice the pattern yet? Naming the threat. Keeping posture after failure. Strengthening the few. These are not motivational posters. They are instruments, and they are noisy, imperfect, human. Churchill was not made of marble. He was a man with ink on his fingers, ash on his cuff, a desk covered in red boxes, and a life that kept giving him reasons to quit. Now return to that first quote near the lamp. The empires of the future are the empires of the mind. Harvard, 1943. He's standing in academic robes, but the urgency in his voice is that of a man who knows the physical world has just burned. So why talk about the mind? Because he's making a hard claim. Tomorrow belongs to those who build their inner power today. Disciplines, skills, habits of thought, tanks rust. Ideas outlive the tanks. Lesson 4. Build an empire in your mind. That doesn't mean fantasy or empty affirmation. It means you choose the currency of your future. Focus, knowledge, judgment. You decide what your mornings purchase. You decide what your evenings reinforce. He read deeply, he wrote relentlessly, and he curated what he allowed into his head. He blocked time. He dictated till late. He walked, thought, then returned to the page. That wasn't eccentricity. It was governance. He governed his attention. Ask yourself, in a single sentence, if the next 5 years belonged to your mind, what would change? Would you negotiate differently? Would you stop flinching from hard conversations? Would you learn a skill that closes the gap between your ambition and your results? The empire of your mind is not built by accident. And remember the war room truth. Unattended territory becomes someone else's. Some of you are asking a fair question right now. What if I do all that, and the ground still moves under me? Churchill had an answer carved mid-battle, when the headlines were finally turning toward hope. November 1942, after El Alamein. He stands to speak and delivers a line that our generation should memorize. Now this is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is, perhaps, the end of the beginning. Lesson 5. Mark the turning, not the finish. We live in a world addicted to finales, the before and after photos, the dramatic reveal. But most of life is made of hinge moments that look ordinary. The end of the beginning is where momentum starts to carry you, but you still have to push. This is where people walk away, thinking the win means coast. Churchill is the man tapping the table saying, "No, tighten the straps, we have miles to go." So when your first breakthrough comes, the first debt cleared, the first 12 pounds lost, the first hard conversation that ends in respect, don't declare victory and drift. Declare the end of the beginning. Enter the next phase sharper, hungrier, more deliberate. If you're hearing echoes through these rooms, good. History has a way of sounding familiar when you really listen, because the core moves have not changed. Name what you face. Stand when you're hit. Strengthen your few. Build your mind. Mark the hinge. Let me take you back to one more desk, one more piece of paper. Post-war Britain is exhausted. The House of Commons is a skeletal ruin. There's a debate over whether to rebuild it as it was, with adversaries facing each other across the aisle, or reshaped into something more modern. Churchill says something that reaches beyond architecture. We shape our buildings. Thereafter they shape us. He's warning that what we create creates us back. Structures teach habits. Translate that to your life. The room you work in. The apps that scream for your attention. The meetings you accept. The foods in your kitchen. All of them shape you in return. Want to change your days? Change your structures. Don't just summon willpower. Rebuild the room, adjust the schedule, place the book where the phone used to be. Move the weights into the space between your bed and the coffee maker. Design the path of least resistance toward the person you say you want to be. Churchill wasn't only a speaker of lines, he was a builder of environments, war rooms, routines, councils, rituals that taught people how to act when they were tired. We need to talk about tired. Because Churchill knew it intimately. He carried darkness quietly. There were days the weight pressed hard. His private secretary recorded the phrase he used like a private order. KBO. Keep buggering on. Crude? Maybe. Effective? Without question. That was the posture in shorthand. It wasn't glamorous. It was a command you give yourself when nothing else is working. Move the pen 1 inch, get from bed to chair, send the message, take the walk, break the day into fightable pieces and keep buggering on. But imagine if KBO were not a resigned shuffle, but a disciplined march. What if every small step had a shape, not just motion? That's where his habit of brevity matters. He favored short memos, tight sentences, clear demands. Why? Because clarity shortens the distance between intention and action. Try it. Write your orders to yourself like he wrote to his ministers. 1 line, 1 task, 1 outcome, 1 deadline. You'll be shocked how much noise disappears. Here's the pivot I want you to hold. Churchill's greatest strength was not that he never doubted, but that he knew what to do when he did. When the fog gathered, he didn't wait for the mood to change. He changed the conditions. He named the fog. He chose the next duty. He tightened the circle around the few who were carrying real weight. He returned to his mind and worked there, as if it were a country worth defending. He marked small progress and refused to confuse a hinge moment with a finish line. He kept moving. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. What's the one line from Churchill, or from your own life, that you need to turn into an order for yourself this week? Drop it in the comments. I read them and I learned from them. If this helped you frame your next move, tap like so it reaches someone else who needs it, and subscribe for the next chapter in this series. Now back to the work. There's a myth that leaders are meant to be unshakable statues. Churchill destroys that idea. He shook. He was dismissed as finished, more than once. He lost elections. He made mistakes that cost lives. And yet, when the call returned, he answered, and the voice that came out of him didn't tremble. It wasn't bravado. It was practice. Years of failure had trained him how to stand on a stage and hold a nation's spine up when the walls rattled. That is what you are doing, on a smaller stage, right now, learning how to stand so the people around you can borrow your balance. Let's stretch one of those lessons across your week. Start with Iron Curtain. What is crossing your boundaries? Name it. Be specific, even if it stings. Next, Defiance and Defeat. How will you refuse to cooperate with despair? Choose a ritual. 10 push-ups, a page of reading, a short walk, something that costs little and pays back momentum. Then, the few. Who are they? Who keeps your lights on? Whose voice in your ear steadies your breathing? Strengthen them this week. A message, a favor returned, an introduction that opens a door. Then, Empire of the Mind. What are you building? 1 skill, not 5. 1. Put it on the calendar like a meeting with consequence. Finally, end of the beginning. What hinge moment have you been downplaying or inflating? Call it what it is. Then plan the next phase with tighter standards. If you feel resistance to all this, good. Churchill didn't promise comfort. He promised reality. He knew the price of words divorced from action. That's why his sentences feel like commands. They are clean. They are focused. They leave you nowhere to hide. He didn't tell Britain it would be easy. He said clearly what it would take. He asked for blood, toil, tears, sweat, and he offered his own first. That's leadership. The bill is paid at the head of the table. You may be thinking, I don't have a nation. I don't have pilots in the sky. You have a life. That is territory. You have a family. That is a small nation with borders, hopes, and a future to defend. You have work. That is a theater with operations and objectives, and you have a mind. That is an empire in waiting, or a ruin in progress, depending on what you do tonight. There's a letter-like quality to the way he closed his broadcasts, an intimacy mixed with steel. He spoke as if looking you in the eye across a desk. So let him speak now through the best of his counsel. He would tell you, identify the peril, set your jaw, honor the few who carry the weight, build the inner citadel every day. Celebrate the hinge, then lean harder. And when the day comes that knocks the air from your chest, don't mistake a blow for a verdict. It's not the end. It may not even be the beginning of the end. But it can be the end of the beginning if you decide to make it so. He would tell you what he told Parliament when the shape of a room was at stake. What you build shapes you. So build the day you can inhabit. Build the habits that build you back. And he would add a final, almost whispered order, because sometimes the greatest wisdom is the smallest push. KBO. Keep going. Keep buggering on in the blunt, humane way he meant it. Keep putting one word on the page, one foot on the floor, one honest sentence into the world. The darkness is noisy, but it is not sovereign. There is still, even now, the simple, stubborn work of those who refuse to fold. Let us then brace ourselves to our duties. Brace yourself, yes, but not alone. Find your few. Thank them out loud. Lift someone the way you wish someone would lift you. Build the empire of your mind with ruthless care. And when you shut the lamp tonight and the house is hammered quiet, ask yourself softly this one question. If history will be kind because you intend to write it, what line will you write tomorrow morning? I can't wait to see what you build. The pen is yours.